Hi. Well, we don't have that many turned in so far for the Grayscale assignment, but I'm going to go ahead and we're going to review and critique those that are. Again, I've got to tell you, like last time, I think I've got a class full of ringers in here because you've all got some really fascinating stuff. So let's jump right into it and take a look. This first one, we're now looking at things in Bridge. This is a really interesting, surreal, almost Dali-esque kind of shot. I'm seeing lots of blown out areas in it, but I think those would be easy to fix. And about the only thing we really need to fix is that. So I'm going to see, even though this is JPEG, this would have been much better to do in Camera Raw, but I'm going to open it in Camera Raw and see if there's anything even still in the JPEG that I can pull out. Otherwise, I'll have to go into Photoshop and try to do some magic, but I don't think I'm going to have to. Let's look. So here we are. We're in Camera Raw, and what I see as a need is the little girl's hair is pretty much blown out. The same for some of the blown out highlights along her leg, maybe along his shoulder. I'm sensing there's stuff up in the sky, but I can't really tell. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here to the highlight slider, because the overall exposure I think is pretty good. And I'm going to drag this down and watch what's happening in her hair. Turns out there is a bunch of detail in her hair that was lost. The highlight on her leg is still a little bright, but her hair has now come in, and I'm seeing some of this stuff in the sky. I've also put some detail on the ground that wasn't there before. I've got this big black blob here in the bushes, so I'm going to see if I can take the shadow area over here and now open that up a little bit. Now, we've got two ways to interpret this. He could be waving at this incredible hole that's in here. Who knows what evil lurks in the dark holes of your photographs? But just to give us something to work with going into Photoshop, I would bring this up a little so I can sense maybe what's in it. And to boost the mid-range contrast just a touch, I'm going to bring the clarity up a little bit. And that would allow me to bring it into Photoshop. There's not a whole lot that I would do to this shot now that we've got some detail there. What I might do is put a little bit of tone in her leg. And you all know how we're going to do this. I'm going to pick it up off of her leg. I'll use the eyedropper tool. I'll pick this light gray, put it in the brush. I'm going to make the brush to darken, meaning it will only paint on its own color or lighter. And I'm going to set the opacity down to maybe around 20%, give or take. Just to put a little bit of tone in there. It's not much, but it's enough to make a slight difference. I'm going to do the same on her shoulder, and I'm going to do the same in these bushes. I want to knock those down ever so slightly. Some of this other highlight area, like in her foot, along his highlight. And I may want to do the same up here in the clouds, so I'm going to pick this lightest cloud tone. It's really pretty light, but it is there. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing with it, just so it isn't quite so noticeable. And I think that's pretty much all we need to do with this one. I love the painted eyeball on her hand to match her real eye. This is really a fascinating shot, very surreal shot. The concept behind this is really cool. So let's go get another one. I'm going to bring this one directly into Photoshop, enlarge it a little bit, because I have to tell you, I don't think there's anything I would want to do with this. If this were a normal architectural shot, I would try to straighten up the lines, but this is just too powerful. This really is an amazing shot. Dustin needs to be really proud of this. I especially like the fact that we're beginning to pick up stars up here in the sky. I don't have anything I would want to do to this shot. The most I might do is put a little detail down in there, just a little tone, so it's not quite so blown out. I want the brightest thing in here to be the lamp in this lighthouse. So I think this is very, very cool. Nice job, Dustin. Let's go get another one. Here we have another one where we've got some blown out areas in the forehead. We've got some really deep shadows in here. It's not that this is bad, but let's just see if we wish to, could we bring some of that out? So I'm going to open it in Camera Raw. And now the only things I need to do, the basic exposure I think is fine, is I'm going to bring the highlights down a little. Oh man, there's a lot of detail in those shadows, in those highlights rather. So I'm going to bring them down just a bit so we can start seeing some of this texture in here. And especially like in his nose. And I'm going to open up the shadows a little bit. That brought up my highlights a little more, so I'm going to bring those back down. And now I've got a little bit more texture everywhere. I'm not sure I would do any more to this, with the possible exception of cropping it a little. And the only reason is because it is so strongly pointed in this direction. And it is so stuck in the middle. It feels like it's off balance. So I'm going to open this and see if I can actually make this center. I think I understand what was being attempted here by putting in the center. His eyes are closed. The little angel or cherub or whatever it is looks like it's asleep. And maybe the goal is to try to make this be really calm and static and basically eliminate motion. But it feels like the whole thing is falling over this way. Partially it's the slant to his head. I think we can correct that a little bit with just a little bit of effort in cropping. I like the sense of this curve, so I don't want to get rid of it entirely. Very slight crop, but now there's a little more room here. It doesn't look quite as much like this is falling over on that side of the image. Otherwise, I think this is really a nice piece. I think all the stuff you guys turned in was nice. Let's go grab another one. My only question for this is, does a shot of flamingos kind of not revolve around the color of them? Well, maybe not. We do have a lot of really interesting texture in their feathers, but we've got a fairly busy scene here. We've got a lot going on, and there's some really interesting areas. There actually might be several photographs in here that we could work with. So let's take a look at some possibilities. One is in here. Now we've got a much tighter crop. I'd probably bring this up just a touch from the bottom. But now we've still got the flamingos. We've still got all this wonderful texture in the feathers. But we've got a much different sense to it. It's a much more cohesive group. Here we've got all kinds of things happening. We've got flamingos, and we got little ducks, and we've got the water, and we've got all this stuff. So I would consider that there might be another way we could crop this. Let's see if we could crop this into a horizontal, almost a panorama, and make it now about this kind of movement. So again, we've got another version of this that we can do. If I were going to keep this one, I think I would want to vignette this foreground a little bit. All of this gray sand wants us to pour off of this side. So at the very least, what I would do is come in and with the, I now have the burn tool. So I'm going to come in with the burn tool darken this sand just a little. Now, this is one reason that I normally don't use the burn tool, is because I went too far. And the only way I can get out of this now is to turn this back to the dodge tool by holding down the option key or the alt key. And now I can lighten it a little bit. But I don't have quite the control I would if I were using the layer, the overlay layer version. So there are several things we could do with this, mostly involved cropping. I think your conversion is very nicely done. The feathers, the texture, all of this came across really well. So let's grab another one. Here we have another one where the tonalities are virtually perfect. And it's a very conceptual shot on this highly reflective table with the sky in the background. There's all kinds of things we could read into this, and I'm not sure there's anything I would do to it, with the possible exception of go against my normal approach where I would want to darken corners, and I might lighten this down in here just to get rid of that one little black triangle that kind of takes your eye away from all this. Other than that, I believe I would leave this one pretty much alone. Again, guys have done some astonishing stuff. Let's grab the next one. Oh, this is an interesting beauty. I'm going to open this one in Camera Raw so that we can play with it just a little. In this case, the highlights are fine, but I think I would like to open up these shadows just a little. Not much, but just to give us ever so slightly an idea of what's back there. And then leave it. It's a good use of shutter speed to get the flowing water. It's an interesting use of composition. This has a nice movement to it coming off of the water and going out. It's possible we could lose this segment right in here. Just to see that, I am going to go ahead and open it in Photoshop, and we'll see what might be done. I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit. So here we have it in Photoshop. Again, I'm not sure this is going to help or hurt it. No, it really crowds it. I really don't like that corner, but I don't think we have much option than to use it. Maybe if we crop just a little more. Using the golden spiral, however, this starts to make a really interesting composition. So maybe a little bit tighter, and then what I would do is cheat, and I would clone this area just to get rid of that last little bit. And this makes a fairly interesting composition all of its own. So, again, you guys did excellent work. I'm really proud of you. And I'll see you in the next group. Take care.